What happens when a woman is blamed for sins she never committed, and the one who stands beside her is the very same man the village wants to tear apart? This is not a story of guilt. It is a story of courage, secrets, and a truth that refused to stay buried. They said she was the cause of chaos. They said he protected her for reasons no one could understand. But what if everything the village believed was a lie? She tried to live quietly, with patience and dignity, until lies, jealousy, and fear turned her world into fire. But when a single truth rose from the ashes, everything changed. He stood between her and the entire village, not because he had to, but because some promises are too deep to speak and too heavy to break. One night, one secret, and a decision that would change every life in the village. Listen closely, because the truth was never what they believed. Some stories begin with love, some end with loss, but this one begins where everything was already broken. The village lay deep within the valley, wrapped in morning mist that softened every rooftop and every winding footpath. The air carried the sound of roosters, distant laughter, and quiet rumors. In the old wooden house near the bamboo grove lived Mr. Tuan, a man who had crossed 60 years of life with a quiet dignity. His back was slightly bent, his voice low, and his eyes always filled with thought. His daughter-in-law, Lan, was 23. Her beauty was gentle rather than bold, like the pale glow of dawn that rests upon river water. However, she rarely left the house now. Her legs, once quick and graceful, had weakened after the accident that took her husband's life only a year after their marriage. The memory of that night still haunted the village. The storm, the flash of lightning, the overturned cart on the slippery mountain road, Lan's faint cries that were found before sunrise, her husband's still and breathless body beside her. After the funeral, Lan had become part of the house not by joy but by sorrow, bound to the father-in-law who saw her as the last piece of his son's existence. Each morning, when the first light brushed across the courtyard, Mr. Tuan would heat water in the iron basin. He would carry it into the bathing room and assist Lan in washing and caring for her body, as her legs no longer held her weight for long. He always kept his face turned aside, his touch respectful and steady, as if she were his own child. Never a word was spoken between them during those moments, only the sound of water cascading and breathing slow and careful. It was a duty he believed was his to bear, because no one else would step forward to help. However, the village did not understand. Whispers began near market stalls where baskets of vegetables were set on dusty tables. Old women leaned close to one another, their voices thin and sharp. He is too close to her. No one bathes another like that. His son is gone, yet the daughter-in-law remains. Strange things happen behind closed doors. The words travel fast, as rumors always do. Soon, even children took them home like seeds caught in their hair, and households repeated them at evening meals. Lan heard the rumors first when a neighbor avoided her gaze, then again when a group of women lowered their voices the moment she appeared. At night, she sat in silence, staring into the dark wooden walls that breathed the scent of time. Her heart trembled with confusion, shame, fear. Mr. Tuan pretended not to hear the gossip, but the lines around his eyes deepened. He spoke less. He began to move with the heaviness of someone carrying a truth that no one wished to see. One afternoon, as rain tapped softly upon the tile roof, Lan gathered her courage. She lifted her chin and looked at him while he prepared the warm water, his hands roughened by years of farm work. Her voice was quiet, but it carried weight. "Father, should we stop? Let them say whatever they say. I can endure the pain myself." He paused. The ladle he held was still in midair. The room seemed to fall into an unmoving silence. His voice, when it finally came, was low and tired. "If I stop now, they will say their rumors were true. If I stop now, they will say I have done something shameful. And perhaps they will say worse things about you." He set the ladle down with care, as if it were something fragile. "I take care of you because my son loved you," he said, "and because in this house you are not alone. You are family. Let them speak. One day, the truth will rise like the sun." Lan lowered her gaze. Her hands tightened against her lap. A single tear traced the curve of her cheek. But outside the house, the whispers did not fade. They grew sharper, heavier, more filled with suspicion and resentment. Soon they would not remain only words. Soon, someone would act. The bamboo leaves rustled in the wind, as if warning of what was to come. And the quiet house, where grief had tried to learn to breathe again, stood at the center of a gathering storm. Continuation, the House of Whispers, Part 2. Rain continued through the night, weaving silver threads across the village roofs. By morning, the air smelled of wet earth and swollen rivers. Yet the villagers' rumors did not wash away. They grew thicker, like mud that clung to the soles of every passing foot. Lon sat in the courtyard with her shawl wrapped around her shoulders. Her fingers traced the grain of the wooden bench, slow and absent-minded. She listened to the distant chatter from a market road, and every voice that rose, she imagined was speaking of her. Mr. Tuan prepared her herbal medicine in the kitchen. Steam lifted from the pot in gentle curls, spreading a scent of ginger and bitter roots. His movements were quieter than before, but still steady. He had endured enough storms in his life to know that silence often shook people more deeply than words. As he walked toward her with a bowl in hand, a sudden knock struck the gate. Firm, heavy, not accidental. They exchanged a glance. Lan's pulse tightened in her throat. The knock returned, louder this time. Outside the gate stood 3 women, their expressions stern, wrapped shawls around themselves though the morning was warm. Behind them hovered 2 elderly men, nodding as if they had come on serious business. The lead woman, Madame Han, was known for her sharp tongue and her pride in never being wrong. Her eyes swept the courtyard as if claiming ownership of what she saw. "We came to speak for the sake of the village," she announced, voice loud enough for neighboring houses to hear. Mr. Tuan opened the gate wider, though his jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Then speak." Madame Han stepped forward. "There are things being done in this house that are not proper. A widowed young woman and her father-in-law living under one roof. Everyone sees it. Everyone talks. It is time to stop." Lan's hands trembled slightly in her lap, but she did not lower her eyes. Something inside her, small yet stubborn, held firm. "What is it that we have done?" she asked softly. Madame Han smiled, but her smile held no warmth. "People do not need to see a fire to know where the smoke comes from." Her words cut sharper than a blade. One of the men stepped forward next. "We believe it is best that Lon be moved to stay with another household, perhaps far from here, for her reputation, for his reputation, and for the peace of the entire community." A silence spread across the courtyard. Only the slow drip of rainwater from the roof broke the stillness. The suggestion felt like a verdict already made. Lan's voice rose, steady but pained. "My legs are weak. I cannot climb steps. I cannot walk to the market. Who will take care of me?" The group exchanged looks, as if they had not considered the weight of that question at all. Finally, Madame Han spoke again. "There are always solutions. A woman who stays where she should not only brings trouble." At that moment, the atmosphere in the courtyard tightened, as if the very air had thickened. Mr. Tuan placed a bowl of herbal medicine down beside Lon. He stood straight, and despite his age, his presence filled the space like a rooted tree facing a flood. "Let me ask all of you one thing," he said, his voice even. "When my son died, who came to help her stand? Who came to help her eat? Who came to clean her wounds when she cried from pain? No one answered. When you heard her weeping at night, did any of you knock to ask if she needed anything?" Still no answer. His gaze did not waver. "I take care of her because she is family. This house has seen enough mourning. If gossip is all the comfort you offer, then perhaps the village should examine itself. Not us." The group shifted uncomfortably, but pride prevented retreat. They mumbled, murmured something vague, and turned away, leaving the gate half open behind them, as if expecting the wind to finish closing it. When the footsteps faded, Lon let out a slow exhale she had held for far too long. But there was no relief in it, only exhaustion. For even though the group had left, the threat had not. Rumors did not stop because arguments were made. They moved like shadows, silent, persistent, waiting for another moment to strike. That evening, as the sky dimmed into a deep violet, the village drums sounded once. a call for a meeting, the kind of meeting that decided the fate of households. Lon looked toward the direction of the sound, her heart cold and still. Mr. Tuan closed the shutters one by one, without saying a word. Inside the darkening house, the air felt different, thicker, expectant. As the last rays of daylight slipped behind the hills, a distant sound of footsteps began to gather outside their gate. Not one person this time, many, and the bamboo grove swayed in the wind, as if whispering a warning that came too late. Night settled over the village like a heavy blanket, pressing down the air until even the insects quieted. The sound of footsteps outside the gate grew louder, overlapping, steady, as if a silent agreement had pulled the entire village toward the house. Lon sat inside, her hands resting on her knees, her breath shallow. She could not see the faces outside, but she felt their presence like a pressure on her skin. She did not cry. Her sorrow had already passed crying and become something sharper, something that watched everything in silence. Mr. Tuan stood near the entrance, not opening the gate yet. He listened first. There was wisdom in that, listening to a crowd before they had a chance to speak. A quiet murmur rose beyond the gate, not angry at first, only heavy, like people gathering to witness something they did not understand, yet felt eager to judge. Then a familiar voice spoke. Elder Din, the head of the communal council, cleared his throat. "Open the gate, Brother Tuan. We will talk as neighbors." The words were calm, but they carried authority. To refuse would mean defiance. Defiance meant punishment. So Mr. Tuan unlatched the gate and stepped aside. Lon saw the villagers fill the courtyard. Their faces varied. Some were curious, some anxious. Some wore satisfaction, as if they had long waited for this moment to confirm what they believed without ever having seen the truth. Elder Din raised a lantern, its warm glow catching the lines of age on his face. "We gather tonight," he began, "not to accuse, but to protect harmony." The villagers nodded in agreement, though harmony was the last thing truly on their minds. He continued, "Rumors have spread. There are concerns about the closeness between this young widow and her father-in-law, concerns about what is appropriate, concerns about the impression this gives to the young and the old alike." Lon felt the words touch her like cold rain. She wanted to speak, but her voice seemed lodged behind her ribs. So she listened. "This is not punishment," Elder Din said. "We simply ask that what is not natural should not continue. A woman bathing must be cared for by another woman. The village will assign someone. There are widows, elders, women with time." The villagers nodded again, but Lon noticed that many of them did not look at her, only at each other, as if they were afraid that meeting her eyes would reveal something inconvenient, something human. Then Elder Din looked directly at her. "Do you agree to this?" Mr. Tuan inhaled sharply, but he did not interrupt. He wanted her to speak her own truth. Lon lifted her head. "I agree that dignity must be protected," she said slowly, "but I will not let shame be forced upon us when there is none. I cannot walk well. I struggle even to stand some mornings. Others may wash my body, but not my grief. They did not hold me when I screamed his name in the night. They did not sit with me when the world broke. Only he did." The courtyard fell into stunned quiet. Her voice did not shake. Her hands did not tremble. Her pain had shaped itself into strength. But the silence did not remain empty. From the back of the crowd, a voice rose, sharp, heated, trembling with something harsher than concern. It was Bitch, a young widow whose life had been tangled with jealousy and bitterness long before this night. "You say he cares for you like a daughter," she said, stepping forward, her eyes burning. "But I have seen the way you look at him when you think no one watches. Do not pretend innocence. We all know what you want." The courtyard shifted. Someone gasped. Someone murmured. The quiet turned into something more dangerous. Lan's breath caught. Her vision blurred for a moment, not from tears, but from the sharp sting of injustice. Mr. Tuan moved forward, but Lon lifted her hand, stopping him. She spoke, each word steady and cold like winter water. "You have seen nothing. You only imagine, because you look at the world through a wound you never healed." The villagers reacted, whispers rising, some agreeing, some disapproving. Bitch's face turned rigid, humiliated by the truth spoken aloud. Then, as if the night wished to test him even further, the bamboo grove rustled in a sudden gust of wind. A strange sound followed, quick footsteps rushing down the road. Everyone turned. A boy appeared, out of breath, eyes wide with alarm. "There is smoke," he panted, from the rice fields near the old storage shed. Smoke. Fire. In a village of wood and straw, fire was fear itself. The crowd shifted instantly, urgency breaking apart their formation. Voices rose. Bodies moved. Lon watched them scatter into the night, their lanterns bobbing like restless fireflies disappearing into the dark. Soon, only a few people remained. The courtyard felt vast again, empty of noise, yet not empty of tension. Lon and Mr. Tuan stood together under the dim lantern glow, the night pressing close around them. The fire was real, but something about its timing felt too perfect. A distraction, a cover, a message. Lan's voice was low. "Do you think the fire was an accident?" Mr. Tuan looked toward the direction of the smoke, his eyes dark. "No," he said quietly. "This is only the beginning." And just then, from the shadows near the bamboo grove, someone else was watching them, breathing softly, waiting for the moment when the village's eyes would turn away again. The night air carried the faint scent of smoke, drifting from the burning fields beyond the hill. The glow of distant flames flickered against the clouds, casting a dull orange pulse across the village. Yet in the courtyard of the old wooden house, everything remained still. Lon remained seated beneath the eaves, her shawl drawn close, her expression unreadable. The silence between her and Mr. Tuan was not empty. It held weight, memory, and a shared resilience no one else could understand. The sound of feet shifting through wet soil came from the bamboo grove again. This time, slower, measured, not startled or frantic, but as if someone had the time to watch, to listen, to calculate. Mr. Tuan turned his gaze toward the grove, though he saw nothing beyond the shadows of leaves swaying. "We should go inside," he said quietly. Lon nodded, but she paused before standing. Her gaze lingered on the gate that earlier had been filled with eyes, voices, judgment. Now it stood open, swinging ever so slightly in the wind, a reminder of intrusion. Inside, the house felt warmer, yet not safer. Lon sat near the small oil lamp, her fingers brushing its metal base. The flame inside was steady, but she was not. "Father," she finally spoke, her voice soft but firm. "When my husband was alive, the village treated us kindly. They smiled when we passed. They shared rice during festival days. Why now do they wish to destroy what remains of our home?" Mr. Tuan sat across from her, his shoulders heavy, his eyes reflecting the lamplight but holding a deeper shadow. "When your husband lived," he said, "people saw this house as complete, a home with order and shape. But grief reshapes things. When a household loses its pillar, others start imagining how to replace it, or how to take what is left for themselves." Lon listened. The words did not surprise her, but hearing them spoken made the truth feel colder. "So it is greed," she said. "And fear," he replied. "Fear of what they cannot explain. Fear of compassion mistaken for desire. Fear that kindness might be stronger than tradition." The oil lamp flickered as a breeze slipped beneath the door. They both turned their heads at the same moment. The door had not been fully latched, and outside, the footsteps had returned. This time, there was only one person. A shadow shifted just beyond the lamplight that poured through the house window. Tall, still, watching, not moving closer, not turning away. Lon felt her heart tighten, not from fear alone, but from the strange familiarity in the silhouette. A memory tugged at her. The night her husband died, the storm, the overturned cart, the shape of someone standing on the road before she lost consciousness. Unclear, uncertain, never spoken of. She rose slowly, using the arm of the chair for support. Her legs trembled, but she stood. The silhouette did not move. "Stay inside," Mr. Tuan said quietly, but Lon took another breath. "I need to see." She stepped toward the door. Her shadow lengthened behind her, crossing the floor in a long, dark sweep. The lamplight wavered, but she opened the door anyway. Cool night wind brushed her face. Leaves rustled. The silhouette remained at the edge of the bamboo grove, half hidden. Lan's voice was steady when she spoke. "Who is there?" For a moment, there was only silence. Then the figure shifted slightly, not stepping forward, not stepping back, but turning just enough for the lamplight to touch the edge of a jaw, the slope of a shoulder. It was a man's form, lean, but familiar in a way that made her breath pause. A voice came, low and rough, not threatening, but burdened with something heavy. "I came back because I could not carry the truth alone anymore." Lan froze. Her heart moved once, strong, almost painful. Truth. The word felt dangerous. Mr. Tuan stepped to her side, facing the shadow alongside her. "Who are you?" he asked. The man exhaled slowly. "Someone who knows what happened the night your son died." The wind stilled. The house seemed to hold its breath. Lan's hand closed over the doorframe to steady herself. The figure did not move closer. He only spoke one more sentence, quiet, but sharp enough to cut through the night. He did not die by accident. The flame inside the oil lamp flickered violently, then steadied again. The bamboo grove whispered in the dark. The truth stood at the threshold, but had not yet stepped inside. The words lingered in the night air like smoke that refused to fade. He did not die by accident. Lan's breath wavered. Her fingers, still resting on the wooden doorframe, pressed more tightly as if to keep herself upright. The night seemed to lean in closer, listening. The man stepped just slightly forward, only enough for his face to be faintly seen. His eyes were tired, swollen from many sleepless nights, and beneath them lived something like regret. Lan recognized him now. Hui, a long-time worker who used to help at the farm during harvest seasons. Quiet, loyal, almost invisible in daily life. A man no one noticed until now. Her voice was faint. "You were there that night." Hui nodded, the motion slow and heavy. Mr. Tuan's expression remained steady, but his hand at his side tightened into a fist. "Speak carefully," he warned, though his tone was not threatening, only weighed with responsibility. Hui swallowed hard. The bamboo grove rustled behind him, as if urging him to continue before fear swallowed him again. "That evening," he began, "your son came to the village first, before going up the mountain road. He went to the warehouse near the river. I followed him because I had to collect some tools that were stored there." Lan listened, every muscle in her body tense. "He was not alone," Hui continued. "He was with someone. Someone from the village. They were arguing." Lan felt her heart begin to beat faster. Names rushed through her mind. Neighbors, acquaintances, people they greeted daily without suspicion. "Who?" she whispered. Hui looked down. His voice grew quieter. "It was Bitch." Lan's breath caught like a knot tightening inside her chest. Bitch, the same woman who accused her in front of the village. The woman who had spoken as if she had already been wronged. The woman whose bitterness always simmered beneath her words. What were they arguing about? Mr. Tuan asked, his voice deep. Hui's gaze flickered with guilt. She wanted to leave the village with him. She said she loved him. She begged him not to stay in the marriage. She said he belonged with her. The courtyard seemed to tilt. Lan took a step back, her legs trembling. She lowered herself into the wooden chair before she collapsed. "My husband refused?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. Hui nodded. "Yes." He told her he loved you. He said his life belonged here, with you, with your future. He said leaving you would be a sin he could never live with. Tears filled Lan's eyes, not from sorrow alone, but from a fierce love she felt even now, from a memory of the man who chose her even in darkness. And then Mr. Tuan asked. Hui's voice faltered. They struggled. She tried to pull him back as he walked away. He pushed her hand off. She fell. She screamed something angry. Then she ran toward the road ahead of him. Lan could see it, the storm, the mud, the sharp edge of the cliff road. She loosened the rope on the wagon that held the cargo. Hui whispered. I saw her do it, but I was too far to stop her. Lan's hands rose to her mouth, her breath breaking quietly. When the rain began, the wheels skidded. The load shifted. The cart overturned. I ran. I tried to pull him out, but the ground was too slippery. He was already gone before I could reach you. Hui's voice cracked, trembling like something long imprisoned finally breaking free. I did not speak. I was afraid. She warned me. She said if I spoke, the village would blame me too. And I believed her. I was a coward. Silence settled again. Deep, unforgiving. Lon closed her eyes. Her grief was no longer just grief. It had changed shape into truth that cut deeper than a rumor ever could. Mr. Tuan's face had grown still, but his stillness was not weakness. It was the stillness of a storm gathering before it breaks. You saw all of this, he said slowly. You held this truth while they shamed her, while they shamed me. Hui lowered his head. I have no excuse. I have come because I cannot hold it anymore, and because the fire tonight was not an accident either. Lon looked up sharply. Hui hesitated, as if the next words weighed even more than the last. Someone said to draw the village away from here, to leave your house unprotected, to make you vulnerable. Tonight was not about gossip. It was preparation. The oil lamp flickered harder, shadows shifting across their faces. Lan's voice was soft, but it carried fear now. What is coming? Hui lifted his eyes, and this time there was no hesitation. They planned to take you away from this house. By force. The room fell silent. Lon felt her pulse in her throat. Her hands. Her jaw. Outside, the sound of fire crackling in the distance continued. The night did not end. It only deepened. A crow called somewhere far away. Harsh, sharp, unsettling. The wind changed direction, carrying a chill. In the courtyard, a second lantern glow flickered. Not theirs. Someone else was approaching. Not running. Not hiding. Walking directly toward the house. And this time, it was not one person. It was several. Their footsteps were heavy, purposeful, unstoppable. Lan's breath stilled. The door remained open. The night waited. The footsteps grew clearer with every passing second. Not hurried, not uncertain. That was what made them frightening. The kind of footsteps belonging to people who believed they were righteous, who believed they would not be stopped. Lon felt her heartbeat stretch into silence. The oil lamp cast long shadows along the wooden walls, making the room feel smaller, pressed in by something unseen. Hui stepped back toward the doorway, as though preparing to slip away. But he did not leave. This time, he stood with them. A knock landed at the gate, not with anger, with decision. Mr. Tuan moved to the courtyard, his steps deliberate. Lon watched him through the doorway, his back straight, his shoulders firm. He did not tremble. He opened the gate. Standing outside were 5 villagers, all men, not elders this time, not the ones who argued with rules or council votes. These were farmers with rope-worn hands and heavy boots. Their faces were tight with determination, shaped by whispers they had accepted as truth. At their front was Ben, a man who once called himself a friend of Lan's husband. He carried a lantern, its flame bright and harsh. We came to settle what the village refuses to face, Ben said. His tone was calm, but his gaze was sharp enough to cut. This situation cannot continue. For the sake of morality, for the sake of order, for what is right. Lon could taste the bitterness behind the word right. Ben looked toward her. No sympathy, no recognition of her suffering, only certainty in his own judgment. You will come with us, he said. There is a widow's home near the river. You will live there. The council will arrange care for you. The words felt like a sentence. Lon raised her chin. I will not go. Ben's eyes tightened. This is not a request. Hui stepped forward, voice shaking but determined. She is not the one who dishonored anything. I saw what truly happened tonight. Before he could finish, Ben's glare struck him like a blow. We know what happened that night, Ben said. We know your loyalty to this family was always unusual. Do not shame yourself further. Every word was heavy with accusation he did not state, but everyone understood. Hui's hands closed into fists, yet he did not speak again. Lon looked between them. The crowd, The shadows, the house that had been her refuge and her prison. Her voice rose slowly, calm and steady like a blade drawn without haste. "You speak of honor," she said. "But honor is not loud. Honor does not harm. Honor does not drag a woman from her home to satisfy a story you have invented." The men did not answer. Truth was never what they wanted. They needed something to believe in, even a lie. Ben raised his hand, a quiet signal. Two of the men stepped forward. That was the moment the air shifted. Lon felt something old awaken inside her. Fear, yes, but layered with something stronger. Not defiance for pride, not stubbornness. Something rooted in memory. The last night she saw her husband alive. How he had turned back for her. How he chose her instead of running. How love can be quiet and still be the strongest thing in a room. She reached for the walking stick leaning beside her chair. Her hand trembled, but it held. "I will not leave this house," she said. The words did not rise like a shout. They fell like a stone, solid, undeniable. Ben hesitated, only for the briefest flicker of a second. But that hesitation was enough for the world to shift again. From the path behind the men came the creaking sound of wheels. Lan's heart froze. A cart, wooden, unpainted, pulled by a rope. Not the kind used for grain. Not the kind used for travel. The kind used to remove someone. Hui inhaled sharply. No. The men did not look at the cart. They did not need to. It had already been planned. Ben lifted his lantern higher, and its flame caught the edges of the cart. Splintered wood, frayed rope, wheels stained with old earth. Lon felt the weight of that image settle inside her bones. They had come not to take her. They had come to move her as if she were no longer a person, but a burden, a problem to be removed before dawn. Wind rustled the bamboo grove. Lon thought, just for a moment, she heard her husband's voice in that wind, calling her name the way he once did on summer evenings. Her grip tightened around the stick. The men stepped forward again. But before they could reach her, a new sound rose from the dark beyond the road. Not footsteps, not voices, not the fire's distant crackle. Drums, the village signal drums, beaten once, then again, urgently, not a call for gathering, a call for emergency, a call for danger approaching the village itself. The men froze. Ben turned toward the sound, his expression changing, not with fear, but with confusion. Something was happening, something larger than this courtyard, something that would shift everything yet again. The drumbeat continued, echoing through the valley. Lon stared at the flickering lantern light on their faces. The night held its breath. The drums echoed again, rolling across the valley like distant thunder. Their rhythm was urgent, accelerating with every strike. This was not the steady call of a village meeting. This was alarm, a warning. Lan's fingers tightened around the walking stick. Her breath stilled as she listened. Ben and the men shifted uneasily, glancing at one another. Their confidence wavered, but their purpose did not dissolve. Not yet. One of them spoke in a low voice. "That signal, it is for danger near the river path." Another answered, his tone uneasy. "The river path is close to the widow's home." Their words hung in the cold night air. The very place they planned to take her was now the source of danger. Lon watched their faces, each marked by confusion, doubt, and unease they refused to fully acknowledge. But the drums did not stop. They grew louder, more frantic. A figure appeared on the road, running, breathing hard, mud splattered across his clothes. It was a young boy from a neighboring field, the same one who had sounded the warning of fire earlier. He stumbled to a halt in front of the group, chest rising and falling sharply. "There is more fire," he gasped. "By the river. The wind is pushing it toward the houses. People are trapped. They need help. Now." The men tensed. Duty pulled at them. The kind of duty no one could ignore, even when driven by suspicion or pride. Ben turned to his group, jaw clenched. "We go. Now." He looked at Long one last time. "This is not finished." Then the men grabbed the lanterns and ropes and hurried toward the road. Their heavy boots pounded the ground. Voices faded into the night. The courtyard emptied. The cart remained. Silent, Abandoned, a threat unfinished. Hui exhaled shakily, the tension in his shoulders releasing only slightly. "We have to move," he said quietly, "if they return and find us unprepared." But Lon did not move. She looked at the cart. It stood there motionless, but full of intention. She stepped closer to it, slowly, her bare feet dragging against the packed earth. Her fingertips brushed the wooden edge. The splinters were rough, sharp, as if carved by hurried, angry hands. "This is what they see when they look at me," she murmured. "Something to be taken, something to be relocated, something without a voice." Her words were not filled with sorrow anymore. They were heavy with something more solid, resolve. Mr. Tuan walked to her side. His voice was calm, though his chest rose with emotion he controlled with discipline. "Not everyone sees you this way," he said. Lon turned to him. "I know," she replied, "but those who do are loud, and those who know the truth are silent." Hui lowered his head. Shame cast shadows across his features. But Lon did not look at him with blame. She looked at him with clarity. "You came tonight," she said. "That is what matters now. The truth is no longer a secret locked inside one person. It lives in the open, and once truth has breath, it cannot easily be suffocated." The wind shifted again, colder now, carrying the smell of burning reeds from the river. The fire was real, but something else was happening behind it. Something planned, something deliberate. Lon felt it, not in her mind, but in her bones. "Bitch," she whispered, not in anger, but in realization. Hui nodded. She is not acting alone. Someone gave her the certainty to act without fear. The three of them stood in the courtyard, the abandoned cart before them, the bamboo grove whispering behind them, the flames in the valley reflecting in the sky. And then a soft sound, not drums, not footsteps, not voices, a creaking. The gate. It moved slowly, inching open. No one touched it. The night wind was still. Land's breath halted. Someone was already inside the yard. Someone had been there longer than any of them realized. A figure stepped out from the shadow beside the well, where darkness had hidden him completely. He did not rush. He did not hide. His voice, when it rose, was quiet, almost gentle. "Do not follow them to the river tonight." Lon felt cold move through her chest. The figure stepped forward into the dim lamplight. It was Elder Din, the one who had spoken calmly, the one who had suggested her removal for peace, the one the village trusted. His face held no panic, no urgency, only determination, and something else. Something Lon had never seen in him before. Something dangerous. "Everything that is burning," Elder Din said softly, "is burning for a reason." The night did not break. It only grew darker. The village sky was bruised purple when the last of the smoke settled over the riverbank. Charred reeds lay collapsed like exhausted soldiers, and the water moved slow and dark, reflecting the wreckage of the night. Lon stood at the edge of the hill, watching the scattered villagers walk back toward their homes. The fear, the accusations of whispers, they had burned along with the fire. What remained now was truth, quiet and undeniable. Elder Din had been taken away by the authorities at dawn. His plans, his deceptions, and his use of Bitch's desperation had unfolded in the open. He had not fought. He had not cried out. He had only lowered his head, as if he knew this ending had been waiting for him all along. Bitch, trembling and pale, had confessed everything. She had believed promises of inheritance, status, and a life above her own loneliness. But schemes built on envy always crumble in their own smoke. Lon watched her sister-in-law now, sitting alone near the path, hands clasped together, silent, not angry, not pitiful, simply learning what remains when illusions fall away. The village, once buzzing with rumor, had begun to soften. Words changed tone. Glances shifted. There were no apologies spoken aloud, but the air had changed, and that was enough. Hui stood a few steps behind Lon, unsure whether to approach. He had walked through fire, both real and within his heart, to understand the weight of presence, the meaning of loyalty. He spoke only when he found the words that did not tremble. "I want to stay," he said quietly. Not because of duty, not because of what others expect. I want to stand with you, if you will allow it. Lon did not turn immediately. Her eyes followed the flow of the river below, slow, steady, persistent. When she did look at him, there was no anger left, no hurt demanding explanation, only calm. You may stay, she said, but not to undo the past. Let it remain where it belongs. We walk forward, not backward. Huey nodded once, grateful not for forgiveness, but for the chance to learn how to become someone worthy of the space beside her. Mr. Tuan waited near the old banyan tree, leaning on his cane, watching the horizon brighten. His face was lined with years, but his eyes held the steadiness of someone who had endured storms without letting them reshape his heart. Lon walked to him. You protected what others refused to see, she said gently. He exhaled, tired yet relieved. Sometimes, he answered, love is not spoken, nor claimed, nor proven. Sometimes it is simply carried. Lon placed her hand over his, steady and warm. You are not alone anymore. None of us are. The morning light spread slowly, touching the fields, the rooftops, the winding paths between homes. The village would wake to a new day. Not perfect, not pure, but honest. Lon stepped back toward the house, her home, the place where she had been broken and rebuilt, wounded and protected, misunderstood, and finally seen. She opened the gate. The wood no longer felt heavy. Inside, the courtyard was quiet. The air smelled of warm earth and jasmine. The old well glimmered. Life, in all its weight and tenderness, waited. Lon stood at the center of it, breathing freely, not as someone claimed, not as someone accused, but as someone who had endured, someone who had remained, someone who now belonged to herself. The wind moved gently through the bamboo grove, no longer whispering warnings, only carrying the steady rhythm of the new morning. And with that, the story came to its natural rest, not with triumph, not with tragedy, but with peace.